Stimulations. Like,
What was that?
as a Tunde Okufi, whose hands are almost as long as Stimulations. When she says we should all squash,
Oh yeah.
you know.
All in.
So good.
It's so long.
Toyota Corolla with number plate BBG625BQ belonging to Stephen Appan has come through for him many times. Like the day he gave a pretty girl a lift, he gisted all the way. She later became his girlfriend. Or the day he locked himself out of the house and he had to pass the night in his car. Oh yeah, and that day rain flooded everywhere and cars were filling up with water. His car was the only one that made it through. Osha pra pra, as he fondly calls his car, has been his lifesaver. And now that it's time for him to sell it, we will make sure the process is hassle-free. Sell your car with no wahala to Cash 45 and get paid in 45 minutes. Log on to cash45.com or visit any Cash 45 inspection center near you.
Okay. Studio, mics are up. A very good morning to you, and thanks for staying with us here on Smooth Breakfast with Folu and myself, Valentine, Lagos. It's time for us to take a close look at the stories this morning on our newspapers inside a freshly pressed 981. With us in the studio to do you justice to the analysis, we have Miss Ireti, Bakare, Yusuf. I'll start with the lady.
Hello.
Cecilia Lagos.
Yes,
good
that's
morning.
her. Yes, good
Good
morning.
morning.
Looking like an Olori this morning.
Yeah.
You need to be on
Rocking
YouTube
my
to see
Olori
exactly what's
t-shirt.
going on.
And Ugo Dre at Ugo Dre on Twitter. Good
Hey,
morning.
man.
Rocking
Morning.
his salt
Good to
and
see you
pepper hair.
Welcome back.
Sort of
Silver Fox.
Silver fox.
all these names and memes. Lagos, go on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, and catch all the exciting visuals and sound from our YouTube channel. Just type in the search box Smooth 981 FM Lagos.
Indeed. Now we're jumping into our first story for this morning. Do remember to use the hashtag freshlypressed981 up on Twitter to comment or send us your messages to our WhatsApp number, which is 0809 444 0981. But we want to ask you to please do your best to tweet at us, simply because it's shorter, it's faster, it's more concise, or drop a message on the live stream. Now, our first story has to do with the U.S. Embassy suspending Abuja services for reasons beyond control, is all that was said. And we've taken the story from the Guardian newspaper, but you'll see it across other newspapers. Now, Mr. Ireti, they haven't really explained why it's happened. Regular services for visa and American citizen services in Abuja, but they say that other offices will be open. They say it doesn't affect their U.S. consulate in Lagos. What are your thoughts on this story?
Well, I find it somewhat arrogant that they're not releasing any information. In any other part of the world, there would be reasons given, and this is part of the nonsense we have to deal with in this country. So you've closed the consulate. You're saying anybody that's got any American citizens, or if you need to go to the embassy in northern Nigeria, you need to go call a number or go to Lagos. Well, it's not just that easy to come to Lagos. It's amazing how people often think, oh, if you can't do it in Lagos, why don't you just go to Abuja? Abuja's about 60K to get there. Thank you very much. You know,
That's a pricey ticket.
It's a pricey it's considering how much they charge for a visa. Imagine adding that on. So they haven't told us anything. And so, of course, what happens? Rumors. Oh, they got a package. Oh, something was sent to them. Quite frankly, I think it's just irresponsible that they're not giving us any information. So, and what's even worse is that our government has allowed them not to give us any information and just be allowed to get away with it and just state carte blanche. Sorry, we can't open. We can't help you. Go do it in Lagos. End of story. Bob's your uncle. Lobaton. End of. I mean, that's literally what they've said. So just end of story.
And it's problematic, and you're right, it does allow room for rumors, but we'll keep an eye on that, I guess, and hopefully somebody will get the
just a
details
bit
out
of
to us.
respect to our name, as they say in
Please
America.
Put some respect.
Put some respect.
on it. Thank you. Speaking of respect, TCN allays fear of blackout over Labour protest. They've responded to a story that we were talking about yesterday, where the Senior Staff Association of Electricity and Allied Companies had threatened a momentary lockdown of TCN's operations, or they said they were going to go on strike. There was also a lockdown of their operations by the FIRS. Now, the TCN, the managing director of Mr. Usman Mohammed, has come out to say, listen, we aren't going to have any disturbances, and FIRS acted outside of their ambit. They were they'd sort of taken a wrong action. But Ugo Dre, I'm going to let you go through this story. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so two stories in one actually. So the TCN, I think there was threat that the TCN might shut down
Yes.
operations,
Because
and
the
we all know what that
workers'
means.
anti-labor practices.
Exactly.
They mentioned him specifically.
Exactly. So the TCN basically manages the grid. So if the TCN shuts down, then it means we can't have light ever.
Yeah.
Like there won't be light. So they are the go between the generators and the distribution company. So if they don't have light, there's no light anywhere. So now, but there are two stories there. So there's the labor issue and there's the FIRS issue. So let's start with the FIRS issue.
Yes.
So they say that the federal revenue threatened to seal their offices because they're owing about 30 billion or thereabouts in taxes, back taxes. So TCN is saying, look, that yes, we did get revenue, but we all know people don't, discos didn't remit money to them because people are not paying enough bills. So, you can't come and tax us for what the amount of cash we didn't collect.
Yeah,
so there's always been that problem. So
money.
exim money. So if you make, say, 1 million naira today, FIRS thinks you should pay, for example, 5% VAT. But actually, your supplier actually paid you 500k cash. So what do you pay FIRS? Do you pay them 5 million on 1 million, 5% on 1 million, or 5% on 500k? So that's like the kind of scenario here. And they are saying that, look, they didn't actually earn that money, so they can actually pay that much.
That money.
Yeah, so they can pay it. But what I don't get, Folu, is why does the FIRS think they have to seal an office just to get them? I don't know whether they have those powers, because over the last few days, it's not just TCN.
And months.
It's been in the news that they've been sealing
Isn't the
up
tax
offices.
man allowed to do
Yeah,
that?
so I
think
haven't
they are.
checked the law clearly, but I think that to seal any office in Nigeria at all, even EFCC, you need a court order. Without a court order, you just can't go into someone's office to seal it. It's kind of like trespass to me.
Double check that, but that is supposed to be the last end resort. And a problem with the way they carried out here is
So
that
we're not
TCN
really
did
sure.
say that, listen, yes, you wrote to us and we wrote back saying that we were getting we're consulting on the matter and we need to figure it out. They also say that a number of the liabilities are inherited liabilities. That have nothing to do with them. That's from PHCN.
I don't understand what that meant though, because the TCN that you have today is owned by the government. It's the same TCN that you had 20 years ago owned by the government. So it's owned by the same people. But bottom line is that I just don't think that you can just go seal up people's offices without a court injunction.
Here's a food for thought. Yeah, sorry, carrying on with your conversation, but food for thought. I'm thinking, while I feel for TCN staff, how about us, the end users? Now, do they put us in consideration when we're thinking about paying bills?
Okay, so now
and then, hang on, they come to your house, they ask you, probably give you estimated bill of over 50,000 naira. If you ever open your mouth to say, oh, I do not earn as much, or I haven't run, my business has actually incurred losses because you haven't given us light all this time, can they consider that?
Okay, so there are two different things. So distribution companies are the ones that come to you in your house. So the TCN operate at the grid. They don't even they don't deal with the customers at all. Yeah.
Okay.
So they are the grid. So their own labor issues is that they've got one of their orgas, the labor guy, who was posted somewhere else, and I think he wasn't happy was posted there. So usually unions can down tool just because one of their union members have probably been treated in quotes not the way they like or badly. So that's basically what the story is about. And to me, I don't think it's enough for them.
The only thing with
to want to shut down operations.
my only thing with this story is that even like the discos, TCN themselves just literally just formed without doing any due diligence. So it is possible that they inherited part of the problems on paid bills from NEPA. Let's not discount that. Exactly. But however, they should sit down and actually go through their papers and say that, it's not hard work, is it? But then NEPA didn't really have any papers.
But again, that's what it
But
goes
it's
back
the same
to.
government
They
anyway.
did say
is.
that they have appointed a consultant and they wrote to FIRS to say, listen, we're in the process of resolving these issues. So
Can you
let's
call
discuss
Ugo
it.
Dre?
Let's discuss
Call
it.
my brother if you need a true consultant to do that.
All right, let's move on though into our next story. Up next, speaking of Ugo Dre, we're staying with you for this one. Let's talk about about inflation, all right? Now, the New Telegraph gives us a headline which is quite interesting. It says inflation rate drops to 11.14%. In fact, it says it crashes down to 11.14 from a figure of 11.23%. I don't know if that's a crash, but it does.
Oh, a crawl.
Headlines. Anyway,
but can you talk to us about the latest statistics that have come out?
So some strong numbers there. 11.14%. We also sort of projected a downward trend. So this is the 18th consecutive time in a row that we've seen a drop in inflation rate. Inflation rate by definition is basically a rise in the price of goods and services. So people tend to sort of misconstrue it. So it's basically saying that because some people are going to say, look, how can inflation rate drop when prices of goods and services are still going up?
Yeah.
Yes. So between July last year and July this year, prices of goods and services have gone up by 11.14%. That's what they're saying. Compared to last month when it went up by 11.23%. So it was down, right? And the beautiful thing about this latest data is that it was also down month on month. So some people like to look at month on month inflation as against year-on-year inflation, because month on month is that you can actually see what's happening now and like in the know. So it's been like this for a while, and that's basically because of some three major things as far as I'm concerned. One is fuel prices are still stable. I think nationwide average fuel prices came to about 146 naira per liter, so it's pretty much stable. We've also seen stable exchange rate in the last 1 year or so at 360, 365, and then electricity tariffs hasn't gone up. So if these things go up, which we expect to happen next year, then we're going to see a rise in inflation. So for now, let's just bask in this. And I think food prices has been basically stable as well, and it's especially in Lagos. I don't know if you go to the market like
except the price of yam.
Yam and plantain. I'm about to get skinny in this country.
But it's actually been stable, Ireti. Like,
which
I
part
don't know
of
where
it
you
is
buy
stable?
yours from.
The tuber
But if you
yam
go to,
yesterday,
if you go
600
to
naira.
Ido and all this, like
Inside.
Why would
inside market.
Why do I have to go
Yeah,
all
because
the
that's
way
where you get them
into?
cheap.
After
If you
paying
buy them in
transport.
Lekki, man, hello, I mean, like, you're going to
I
Lekki.
don't like how
Lekki
you
market is
Darling,
different, though.
I do not do Lecky.
You don't do Lekki.
I do
Are you
anyway.
sure?
I don't do Lecky.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Let's just leave it there.
Olori has spoken. Please, let's
Thank
carry
you.
on. We've got more. Speaking of Ireti, we are going to stay with you for this next story. The next couple of stories are rather interesting. Ireti is going to take them both, but I'll give you the details of this one. Saraki is mulling a presidential bid and promises change. 2019 loading, as the kids say. He says he believes that he can make the change, and he stated this in an interview with Bloomberg, and also expressed concerns about the invasion of the National Assembly by operatives of the DSS. He did wax lyrical about a number of other things. Says Nigerians need to be governed by a genuinely pro-business administration that would tackle the current security issues. Mr. Ireti, my question is, taking a look at Saraki's business past, would he be the genuinely pro-business mind behind this, his soon-to-be administration? I'm just asking, but what are your thoughts on the story?
Well, Ugo and I are going to enjoy sharing this, aren't we? Because I can see he's already rubbing his hands.
Because it's
Like,
very
let's
interesting
get
that he
into
goes
this
in that
story.
direction.
Exactly.
Please go ahead.
Exactly. No, absolutely not. I mean, it's not whether he's got the business mind. It's the fact that can you trust somebody who has defrauded millions of Nigerians out of their hard-earned cash? And I'm not talking Nigerian elites, middle class. I'm talking a lot of the lower class, lower working class, the masses, however you want to say. No, of course you can't. I mean, it's almost like asking advice, I don't know, asking maybe, I don't know, a robber to, I don't even know. I'm trying to find the analogy. But no, he can't, because that just clearly doesn't make sense. But however, what we do know Saraki is very good at doing, he's very good at rhetoric. He's a very smart guy. After all, he went to King's College. So he knows what to say to the international community. He wasn't talking to Nigerian journalists. He was talking to the international journalists. So they're sitting there listening. And it also amazes me how they weren't asking him about SGBN the minute he met Society General Bank, the minute he mentioned business. They didn't ask him. He was just allowed to keep talking, etc., etc. So no, nobody's really going to take business advice from Saraki, I don't think. That doesn't mean he's not smart. That just clearly means that you can't trust him. If he's stolen my money once, why will I go and talk to him about my money again? You know, I mean, Ugo, what do you think? You're in the finance industry.
Well, for me though, you want to also judge him by his antecedents when he was in.
Well, it's not that we
Kwara
want,
State
we
governor,
must.
right? So
We
Kwara
must.
Kwara State is not one of those states today that you look back and say, well, this was a great state, or one
Yeah.
of the states that you've seen it
The
turn
legacy,
around.
the legacy
Yeah,
is
so
not great.
nothing. So you've done it before, 8 years, nothing. You've been in the Senate for all these years, Jonathan era, now nothing much has changed. So as far as I'm concerned, personally, I don't think he has enough pedigree to lead this country. I don't think he's kind of person.
Trust
That's
pedigree,
me,
rather than not
personally.
so much before
So
you all
I
get
don't
worried.
think,
We're talking trust pedigree.
yeah, and then I'm reading a report, and he was talking about. He mentioned the security situation that you had in the Senate the last time, the closure, and he says if a government can go and lock up an arm of government,
Thank you.
or government.
Yeah.
I mean, like, so my problem with him basically is that, I mean, like, it's as if this has been in the script for a while, right? So it's probably been in the script for a while. So from the very first day you came in as Senate President, you've basically worked against the current government. I mean, I make no,
Apologies.
for that. That's basically how he's come
That's
to
how
me.
it reads.
I mean, smart
the
guy, sound, but in terms of leading Nigeria personally,
The thing with her, with this story for me is, as you read it, you see what becomes apparent is the duplicity of this man, over and over and over again, and he's saying things that you know that even he has not been able to adhere to. So, quote, the fundamentals of whatever we are going to develop are going to be based on sound democracy, credible elections, freedom of choice of Nigerians. If we don't have that as a foundation, then everything else cannot happen. Sir, how about walking the talk? I go further down. He then says, we talked about, so he's talking about how when they were negotiating with PDP, and this is really interesting. He said, we talked about how to sustain and improve the fight against corruption, the issue of providing more power to the states, inclusion and having a more nationalistic approach to things we do to continue to improve the environment that will ensure investment. We listed a number of items during the discussions with PDP, and there is a written agreement to that. Oh my word. Since when do you guys actually stick to written agreements? You have a written agreement with us.
punches.
Very quickly, we've got a few messages that have come through. Henry Emmanuel says FIRS can seal an office if you refuse to pay after they must have sent an assessment. And if the shallow reasons given by TCN is any guide, they have no excuses. Says Ugo Dre, you're an accountant. What does AIS 18 say about revenue reconciliation? The assessment sent by FIRS is strictly based on the revenue recognition procedure in the AIS 18, and TCN should negotiate a payment plan. Very interesting. While we've got more messages coming in, somebody questioning whether or not you go to the markets. Ugo Dre says, listen, where does Ugo Dre live? The price of electricity has gone up, just so you know. And please, when you say TCN is the bridge between the generators and distributors, please clarify, because I have a generator too. So which generator?
There are levels to this.
No, power
generating
generators.
companies, Gencos.
While up on Twitter, quite a few messages
Not
have
a
come
gen
through.
set.
This one has come in from, let's see, Auntie Yellow, who says, Mr. Ireti, could it be that they have the intelligence of an impending attack on their embassy, talking about the US? I won't blame them if that's the case for not telling us, since Nigeria's security services can leak such intelligence to terrorists, they say. Oh, well, let's move on. We've got more stories to get into.
So this next one, still sticking with you, Mr. Ireti, for this, from Thisday newspaper, Al-Mustapha Mulls, president, joining presidential race. All right, so the former chief security officer, we all know, to the late head of state, General Sani Abacha, Major Hamza Al-Mustapha retired. In case you're wondering who this is, if it's name Al-Mustapha, we'll recall that back in the day, he was sentenced to death by Lagos High Court. That judgment was overturned by Court of Appeal in 2013. The same person actually came out in his bid to run for presidency. He has described the efforts of EFCC in fighting corruption as a small monkey given a threat to arrest an elephant, but abandoned it and is busy destroying the animal kingdom. I mean, he's waxing lyrical now. Mr. Ireti, do you think he has the strength or the intelligence to rule Nigeria?
Oh, forget intelligence. Who's talking about intelligence?
I mean, he's speaking
Can
all
we
this-
just talk about antecedents, please? Forget that. Integrity. No.
It seems like everybody's coming out to...
This is not even about intelligence. This is about, look, we've gone from the sublime, Saraki, to the ridiculous. We're basically putting together a collection of bandits. I don't know, what's the equivalent of Bonnie and Clyde in two male form? I don't know. Help me, somebody. The equivalent of Bonnie and Clyde in male forms. I mean,
feel like there's
this
some brothers
as
in the
in
Wild West.
exactly, yeah, the wild west. I mean, look, you know, the lunatics have taken over the asylum, and the rest of us are going to end up with them. Are you kidding me? Lagos, this is Al-Mustapha. Let me just remind you, this is the same man who was accused, tried, and sentenced
And
for the before we get to the acquitted, because just because you were acquitted later doesn't mean you didn't do it, right? He was found guilty of the death. This is an assassin of the death of Kudirat Abiola, MKO's wife. Okay, and this man is now speaking. He dares to he has the audaciousness to so much as bring a breath out of his mouth to talk to Nigerians about running for presidency, and we are expected to take this seriously.
Well,
Stop. This is madness gone. It's
But there's a
madness,
Christian
really.
group that
That-
I mean-
and this is where I want to come to.
Oh.
So thanks to yet another Christian group, United Christian Leaders, Eagle Eye. I'll give them Eagle Eye Forum. How about Blinded Eye and, you know, Organ Grinder and the Monkey Eye Forum? They are the ones who are saying, we will endorse him. They say, after critical analysis and observations, what in God's name did you observe?
Here's this same-
Where is the
same-
critical analysis? Because it's not hard work.
It's the same man-
Were you tried of murder? Yes or no? Bẹ́ẹ̀ni bẹ́ẹ̀ kọ́. How do you say that in Igbo?
This is Ireti.
Odikwe. Right?
Wow.
I don't know. How do you say
I'm very
it?
sure
It's a
that's not
simple
how you
question.
say it, Miss Ireti.
It's a simple question. Can you, my Igbo brothers and
but
sisters help me?
understood.
You understand? So which kind of
Point taken,
critical
point
analysis
taken,
are you
point taken.
doing?
People experience a turnaround. People have a
it-
different mindset over time, over experiences. Now, this is the same man that's regarded by some of his peers as a very, very
But he's
good
a hero
max
to
man.
some people.
Max man, and he said his focus is to protect Nigerians, the right of Nigerians
From
as
other murderers
privileged
like
under-
him?
as
Well, he
privileged
was
under law.
acquitted, and that is an important distinction.
Yes,
Legally.
yes, it was acquitted thanks to GEJ. Yes, PDP again.
Well,
I wonder what he's going to be running under.
it's a
Little
court of appeal.
PDP or criminals of PDP.
But we do
I
need to
wonder.
move on
Let's
now.
move on to this
That's
next
a real
story.
story. We did get a tweet from Osazuma as well, who just says, well, if Al-Mustapha can run for president, then why not?
Exactly. There you
question.
go. Thank you.
Vanguard newspaper is next. Budget
Bandits.
2018. Let's talk about that. Representatives query INEC over duplication of items. They're saying that the House of Representatives Committee on Electoral Matters precisely yesterday queried INEC, Independent National Electoral Commission, over the duplication of the items provided for in the 2018 budget for the 2019 polls. They said what they included in that budget was already contained in the 45.5 billion naira approved initially for the budget by Muhammadu Buhari.
Yeah,
According to the National
Valentine, I don't. Why can't we just get budget right here? Is that
Yeah.
budget so
Why do we keep making
complicated?
mistakes?
Like, why are you always going back and forth?
No,
Like, it was there, it wasn't there, it
And
was
then
in
it
this
makes,
other.
it makes me
I
wonder
just
if it's a deliberate attempt
I
at
don't know.
inflating the prices or just putting in figures that would not necessarily be there or just stealing money
and
outrightly.
and budgets are just numbers, right? You put together projections. So why can't they always just get this right? Why is it always this confusing? And you have a whole budget office, you have ministry of budget and planning, you have people who do these things. So why do we always have to come to the pages of newspaper and start see National Assembly members or the government arguing budget? I just don't get it. But you look deep into
Because
the story.
budget equals
It's
corruption,
money, but-
equals stealing,
I don't
equals
know, but at least
pilfering.
get it. I mean, you can do whatever, but get it right. I mean, you just can't always come to the pages of the newspaper every day and we are arguing budget. And this is billions of naira. So, but the interesting part of the story, Valentine, for me is what I didn't get was they said lawmakers also queried 28.6 billion naira proposed as honoraria for 2 million. Listen to this.
Yeah.
2,763,990 ad hoc staff.
Yeah.
That's 2.7 million people. That's what we're going to use.
Give honorary to.
Yeah, so those are the guys that are going to ad hoc staff for the election. That's like a state. It's like a whole state.
Yeah.
Isn't that the whole population of the
I mean, like
NYSC?
our unemployment rate should just drop then. 2.7 million people. So that comes to about 76,000 people per state. I don't know what to run an election
So
in terms of manpower, but
Probably
this is quite
working,
humongous to me.
working to feed the election.
Yeah, this is quite humongous, and it comes to about 10,000 naira per person. So I really don't know why we need that much people to an election.
But
2.7 million
ad hoc
people.
staff in elections are very useful. They sort of like act like the ground forces.
2.7 million people.
There are a lot of people. and it's a lot of people to cater to during the elections. Well, let's move on to this next story from Premium Times. I'll come to Ireti for this one. It was still talking about SamuelOgundipe, the journalist that was detained and dinged by security operatives. Now, the police yesterday, precisely, we talked about this and how it is that two of his colleagues were arrested and then released, but he was kept behind. The police tried to coerce him to release information surrounding his source for a particular news that he published. What are your thoughts on this?
Oh, this is disgusting. This is really, really, really
You just sounded
concerning.
like Trump.
Well, it is disgusting. You're just shocked. So SamuelOgundipe, honestly, the whole of Nigeria is behind you. Premium Times keeps pushing for your guy. Whatever it is, we all need to do. If we can get Osinbajo to finally wake up to end SARS, then we can actually all put our efforts behind getting this poor guy out.
Yeah.
So he's a journalist. He obviously did an expose. Right? They don't like it, so they want to know who his sources are. He wouldn't release his sources, and quite rightly
Journalists
he shouldn't.
should never release their
Exactly,
sources.
quite rightly he
They're not
shouldn't. He must
obligated to.
never release it. So what do? You arrest him. But that's not the story. The real story here is they rush him to court. Okay, so here's what he said. So they brought me to magistrate's court in Kubwa, where they arraigned me. The magistrate said they should detain me for 5 days. They accused me of criminal trespass. They said I stole secret documents. The magistrate does not know the details because they did not include the charge that I'm a journalist. I was not allowed to contact my lawyers. They also did not allow me to call anyone until the magistrate ordered them to let me make one call. I am currently using the registrar's phone to make this call, and they are collecting it. That's what he said to his editor-in-chief. Absolutely disgusting, disgraceful. First and foremost, Folu, doesn't the magistrate have the right to say to them, to remind them of the rights of somebody when they've been
As an individual,
arrested?
and
Yes,
then as a
right.
journalist.
That it shouldn't. That's number one. Number two, this poor man has obviously been taken to court without a lawyer because they kept kidding them about, telling them come back tomorrow, come back tomorrow. And what they did was so that his lawyer wouldn't be there.
They first
Look,
asked them to come back at 4
allow
p.m.
me
of
to
the
say,
same day. Yeah.
yes, allow me to say, this has happened to me before. Only in my case, I was not going to allow any sort of nonsense. It was with a big name Lagos family, and they obviously owned the police station, and they thought they were going to intimidate me. Only they didn't realize. So, I faced them head on. But I know exactly what's happened to this man. So they bundled him straight to court, put him in front of the judge. He hasn't been allowed to have a lawyer or whatever. And now he's still in jail. But what I don't get is
that they didn't tell the magistrate that he was a journalist.
exactly this is it. And what I don't get is though, this is Premium Times. Premium Times has some very senior people on their board. What are you doing? I've got to ask the question. I did just allowing this to
keep
go
an
on.
eye on this.
They need to do
It is
something.
a
You need to
developing story.
turn
It
to your
has
board
literally been
members.
But what did he do, though? What did he do?
He did an expose story.
Yes.
An expose on what?
On
communication
corruption.
That went,
Was the
from-
Dara story, isn't it?
I believe.
Yeah, it's just
so.
that from what
But
I'm
it was-
seeing here,
it
it's the
was-
Dara
It was
story.
really about the.
He exposed the communication between the
Yeah.
Inspector General of Police
And
and the
the
Vice
acting
President,
Yes,
acting President, on the
absolutely.
Dara story.
Yes. So the question is, if it does
Upsetting.
compromise, and we do know that you can ask journalists for their sources, especially if it is a matter of
National security.
Yeah,
And
but then
the-
you have to get a court.
Absolutely.
But
So
what
the
I'm
process-
also-
the process and the manner in which this has been done is the problem. So that's why we are going to keep following the story until it's hopefully positive conclusion. But for
And we
time
need to send a
reasons,
message to
have to
Osinbajo. We
move
need to
on.
keep bombarding the VP because he needs to get involved in this as well.
For time
We
reasons,
need
though,
to.
Mr. Ireti, let's continue.
Yeah.
We'll take a message here from Debo Banjo.
Yes, indeed. He says, I would vote for Evans instead of Al-Mustapha, or rather bring back Annie from the dead. What nonsense. This country is rapidly nosediving into a political Bermuda Triangle. We're the only ones who can deliver ourselves. While we've got this one in from Wale Arojo, who says, Al-Mustapha sure does have a financial chest from the Abacha loot to fund a presidential campaign. That's why he's getting endorsement from phony Christian groups. Very interesting. While we've got this one in from Aziz from Igondo saying, I think Mr. Ireti might be right about lunatics taking over the asylum. There are posters of Reverend King all around Ojo Lagos now. He is also apparently running. God save us in this country. Please,
Yeah.
let's move on.
Guardian newspaper is last but not the least with this story. story, Kaduna Assembly declares ex-deputy speaker's seat another vacant. So two people, precisely the ex-speaker, ex-deputy speaker, the former deputy speaker resigned his position. I was talking about Aminu Shagali. Rather, John Audu Quatari. It was Aminu Shagali who yesterday announced that the seat was made vacant. I mean, talking about this story, Ireti Yusuf, or rather Ugo Dre. Ugo Dre, if you're looking at this story, we're seeing a lot of defections, a lot of seats declared vacant. People just anticipating 2019 elections. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so he decamped to the PDP and claiming that the government has not favored his constituency, that's the Kaduna South. I think the Christian side of Kaduna are now defected to PDP. So we're in a season of defection, and so this is no surprise. However, he decided that he was going to resign because there was obvious pressure that they were going to impeach him. So the APC is the majority party in the State House of Assembly. So this goes to those who argue that the Senate President actually shouldn't, the current Senate President actually shouldn't resign, right? I actually think he should, right? If you're not in the ruling party and you can't be a Senate President morally, that's what I think. Yeah. Even though the Constitution doesn't specify that, but I think that he should also go. And this is just an example. You can't just call yourself an upright person and you're no longer the ruling party and you decide you still want to be Senate President. That's just my opinion.
Thank you very much for that. To round up a few messages from Twitter, Sonia Amadu Abuchi is still coming for you. Ugo Dre says Ugo Dre clearly does not go shopping. Food prices have. Capital have.
Don't tell him, please. Plantain and yam.
Ms. Ayomide tweets and says, "This is good news. It proves that the Buhari-led administration is really working in making sure the economy records huge successes." I think talking about the statistics there. Chika Jino says, if the Nigerian government up until now cannot give us the reason for the siege on the Nigerian legislature, then why do we frown on the U.S. Embassy for not disclosing the reason of closing its embassy to the general public?
Good point. Good point.
And Bolaho, Mr. G Quest finally comes in to say, Nigerian budgets are not just numbers, Ugo Dre. Budgets is the highlight of our politicians and government officials. The holy grail. Budget changes lives of politicians and occasionally the masses.
That's right. Lagos. Thank you very much to our wonderful analyst, Asisi Oge Lagos, on all social media platforms. Thank you for coming in. And at Ugo Dre, find him on Twitter and Instagram as well, at Ugo Dre. Lagos, coming up next in 15 minutes, we'll talk entertainment inside of the Grapevine. Good morning.
Choose the innovative and smart way.
I beg your pardon. I thought my story was the last one because it was number 8. No. Yeah. So that's why I was like looking at it.